Anyways, let's get on to something a little bit more spicy. So you brought this to my attention. I see. I don't. For some reason, I'm not subscribed to Valve's news network. I probably should be because Tyler McVicker, the guy who runs it, he's an absolute G. Apparently, ladies and gentlemen, there are four. Count them, four unannounced Valve titles that are in the works. And before you grit your teeth and inhale deeply, no, none of them are Portal 3, Left 4 Dead 3, Half-Life 3, or Team Fortress 3. According to Tyler, he found out about these four games by doing a data mine of the recently released, what was it called? Aperture Desk Job, the tech demo that was released with the Steam Deck, the new console that Valve has put out. Mm-hmm. And in the files for that game, he found references to these aforementioned four titles. And I'm going to tell you exactly what they are right now. First up is a recreation of a previously canceled Portal Paint game. I don't know what that means. It's something that involves the Portal universe and being able to paint, I guess. The second one is one that a lot of people have probably been expecting for a long time. It's Counter-Strike Global Offensive port to the Source 2 engine. So just like Fortnite is being ported over to Unreal Engine 5, Counter-Strike's being ported over to Source 2. Yeah, so I don't play it, but I know a lot of people do. It's like the most popular game on Steam right now, and people are either going to love or hate that. 3 is a sequel to Half-Life Alyx, which I'm excited for, even though I don't own a VR headset. Just anything story-related that's set in the Half-Life universe, I'm particularly excited about. And the fourth game is the one that I find to be very, very intriguing, and the one that we happen to have the most information about coming from Tyler McVicker. The fourth game is called Half-Life Citadel. Now, apparently, Tyler, he describes this game in a very, very weird but very intriguing way. He described it as, quote, Left 4 Dead, Alien Swarm, a real-time strategy game, and Half-Life all having a baby. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically, if you know anything about the Half-Life universe, there are the Combine, which are the main villains of Half-Life 2 and the subsequent episodes, and Half-Life Alyx, and the rebels who fight against them.
I don't know. I have to say that I feel that ever since the beginning, the villains were actually the humans who invaded the Combine.
What? What are you talking? What?
You didn't wait. You know the story behind Half-Life 1, right?
The humans invading the Combine.
Yeah, humans invaded alien space and were trying to take it over.
No. That's not the Combine. That's Zen. God, I feel like such a nerd right now. That's the... Sorry, like I'm pushing up my glasses. Sorry. Me and my girlfriend had this joke where we pretend to be like total geeks and just like...
Well, I mean, it's not the Combine, but like they were attached to the Combine. The Combine came to their defense, which is why...
No. The Combine were persecuting the Zen forces.
Okay, I need to read up on this.
Yeah, it's okay, man. It's like Half-Life 2 came out almost like 20 years ago, so no big deal. But yeah, Combine versus Rebels. Some of the Zen forces are working on behalf of the Rebels, while others are just sort of messing around, sort of displaced from their home of Zen, as we see in the Half-Life 2 and the episodes. But yeah, in this Half-Life Citadel game, it's Combine versus Rebels, team-based, squad-based, class-based, hybrid of a real-time strategy game and a first-person shooter game. Now, as for how that would work, apparently one person will be sort of like a commander, placing other players around a gigantic map and sort of having them try to take control points. This sounds interesting to me because I'm not aware of a game that sort of mixes RTS and FPS elements together.
I am.
Okay, please.
There was a game, I'm trying to remember the name of this. There was a game a long time ago that that you had one player who was basically the RTS, god person, looking down at the battlefield, selecting units and directing them to go in directions and attack certain things. And then there was the FPS players that made up the army, or at least a portion of the army. And as far as I remember, it was absolutely terrible because nobody listened to the commander.
Hmm.
Like the commander would be like, "Go here," and everybody's like, "I could be a better commander. I think we should attack the south point. I mean, there's like 10 enemies over there, and I'm just one person, but I can take them all. Don't you worry. I got this, man." And then like running off, and then like just it was just like you were the commander trying to tell your troops to like maneuver around here. Enemies are coming this direction, and again, all of the players basically were like, no, and then they would rush into the attack just to do regular like FPS versus stuff.
Mm.
So I cannot remember the name of this. 10 points to anybody who gets the 10 points to your house if you could tell me which game that is, what the name of it is, because it's slipping my mind right now. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, please let us know in the comments section below. I that normally would concern me. If I did one attempt that somebody made of a game like that wasn't that great. But because it is Valve, and Valve only seems to put out games when they actually really truly believe in the product, especially when it comes to the Half-Life universe, I still remain excited. Now, some people might be like, well, what if the game doesn't have a single player campaign? I only care about Half-Life when it comes to the story. Well, I would agree if we were only getting Half-Life Citadel, and Half-Life Citadel doesn't have a story. But we are apparently getting a follow-up to Half-Life Alyx, so we are getting that story content. Plus, it's not necessarily for certain that Half-Life Citadel is going to be without story content, because according to Tyler McVicker, it does have a single-player campaign. Now, maybe that just means you get to play on your own, and it's just sort of providing a little bit of lore to set up the context of a particular battle. Like maybe the rebels are trying to take the Borealis up in the Arctic or something, and the Combine are trying to secure it or something. Maybe something like that, and not much else. But because we are getting both, I think I'll be satisfied. Now, hopefully these games are real. Hopefully we'll be able to get them sometime soon. And hopefully if they're successful enough, we'll get, I don't know, maybe not Half-Life 3, but maybe Portal 3. Just a third game in any of these legendary franchises from Valve. First of all, Saib, are you a fan of the Half-Life games? Are you excited about the concept of any of these 4 games? And do you think that if they're successful, they'll pave the way for a third entry in any of these franchises?
Well, I mean,
I know that's a lot to answer. Sorry.
I don't think we will ever get an actual Half-Life 3. I think we will get a continue, because the story leaked, right? Essentially,
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, a lot of what has leaked, and I don't think they could ever go back to it unless they just reintroduced it as like a new game, like releasing 1 and 2, and then creating a continuation story, which I honestly think is a good idea. But I don't think Steam can actually. I don't know if they're capable of doing that, or if they want to do that, or if they have the writers to do that or not. It would also kind of risk damaging the originals and a couple different things. But I think the worlds are still alive. Like, Half-Life Alyx did tremendously well for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a very high selling game.
It's the best VR game ever.
Yeah. It's I would agree. Like, as far as like a combat game goes, it's one of the best ones ever, and it's opening up the saga. At some point, I would not be surprised, assuming that the world doesn't nuke itself in the next couple of weeks, that if we ever get full dive technology, I honestly think that if full dive was developed by Steam, and Steam was one of the first companies that came out with a full dive thing, I bet you more than anything that there would be a Half-Life related game in that game, as well as a Portal game, as well as a couple other things. I honestly think that the chances of them continuing the universe with new tech like that is an absolute given, because it's always been what they've done. They've always wanted to push. They don't want to push the story for making a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6 with the same assets, with the same technology. They want to push that level of technology past what people are used to seeing.
Mhm.
And this is their own words. They, like Gabe has come out and said this a number of times, that the next Half-Life game will feature technology that is not in use today,
Mhm.
because that's what the previous two games did. And I think that they should have come out with more. I think that the story was good enough that they should have continued the story,
Yes.
the journey. But at the same time, if we're looking at this in a mirror of history at some point, going, there was Half-Life 1, then Half-Life 2, and they both used new technology and new ways to play the game, and it was different than anything else that was on the market at that time.
Mm.
And then there was a long drought between then. But then 30 years later, a full dive experience came out, and the Half-Life MMO full dive experience became the largest game in human history, and continues with new technology even today in 50, 60 years of reporting on this. That's what I would imagine
Yeah.
that they are going for, and that history could look like, because again, they've been very set on this, and they've never, despite the writers leaking stuff from time to time and other people, they've never released their full plans for it.
Mhm.
They have tried, and they did have they had over 20. I knew it was over 20. I think it might have been even over 40, but I do remember them having over 20 different experiments with other developers. So they allowed other developers to come in and pitch the story to them, that they pitched the game, pitched the concept, and it was everything from side scrollers to RTSs to, a bunch of different things featuring the continuation of Half-Life 3.
Hmm.
And each time they looked at it, they said, no, the technology, it's just not right now. And again, that makes sense to criticize them for that right up until Half-Life Alyx came out. And then right up until now when this new game came out. Because what they're doing is they're making us understand that there's still things that they want to do within these worlds and within these universes. Maybe they want to pick that up as far as the amount goes quite quickly. I think that's probably a very good idea. But, what will ultimately come of it, I don't know yet, and we'll have to see, because it's very interesting to kind of track this. So
I just hope it doesn't take 20 years before we get some proper follow up to Half-Life. I understand that Half-Life 2 was revolutionary, and it is. Even if you play it today, the game still holds up remarkably well, especially because of that gorgeous gravity gun. But I imagine if you polled the majority of people who are fans of Half-Life, they don't really necessarily care so much about it being revolutionary. They just care about it being a good game set within the universe. But that doesn't seem to be their policy, and yeah, well, at least we're getting something. And at least we got Half-Life Alyx, which came out a couple years ago, and it looks like we're not going to have to wait too much longer until we get to go back to that universe. Thank God.